Call to order. Roll call.
Mr. Albro?
Present.
Ms. Calderon?
Here.
Mr. Costa? Ms. Cloninger?
Here.
Mr. Lombardi? Mr. Lino? Vice President Beth?
Here.
President Gomez?
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, board statements. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the New Milford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place there posted in the Borough Hall and in the New Milford Public Library. Notice has been sent to the Record and the Twin Borough News. The board announces that under its long-standing policy, it will not discuss in public any comments made by members of the public concerning individual staff members. At this time, please be advised that all cell phones and electronic devices are to be turned off. Meetings of the board are open to the public and all members of the community should feel free to participate. Before coming to the board, the chain of command should be followed. There are two portions of the meeting reserved for comments from the public, the first at the beginning of the meeting for agenda items only, and the second at the end of the meeting for other items. Issues raised by the public may or may not be responded to by the board, but all comments will be considered. The board requests that all members of the public be mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Due to confidentiality and legal rights afforded by the state of New Jersey, members of the public are asked to not speak negatively or in a derogatory manner about any employee of the board or any student. We're going to start off with a presentation, which is the Spring 2024 NJSLA Performance Data.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight we're going to share the results from our Spring 2025 administration of the New Jersey Student Learning Assessments. As a brief reminder, these assessments are computer-based. All of our students in grades 3 through 9 participate in the ELA portion, and all of our students in 3 through 8 and high school courses participate in the math component of the assessment. For science, the assessment is administered to students in grades 5, 8, and 11. There are 5 performance levels. Level 4 and 5 show that a student has met expectations. Levels 1 through 3, students have not yet demonstrated proficiency. Some of the things that we think about when we're looking at this data with our administrators and our teachers is how we're going to use it as a tool to address specific learning needs. Where do the gaps lie with individual students, and how can we tailor our instruction to best fill in those gaps and improve those deficiencies. How are we going to use this data to identify strengths and trends that exist in our instruction? We also use this data to look at our curriculum and instructional resources to make sure that all of our materials are meeting the needs of all of our students and subgroup populations. This is a very comprehensive presentation, as you know, so I just want to preface it. This will be posted tomorrow on our website, and you will be able to view it. Of course, if there's any questions, you can send them my way. So we'll start by looking at English Language Arts. Here's our participation from the spring. We find the participation rate by taking the number of tests that were administered, divide that by the number of eligible test takers or enrollment in that specific grade level, and that gives us our participation rate. Very aligned with the participation that we've had in years past. Here we're looking at district performance across 3 years. So how overall, the overall number of students who were proficient across 3 years, all grade levels. So you can see we're kind of hovering around the same area, pretty steady in terms of performance. Here we're looking at New Milford versus the state. New Milford is the dark bar in the graph. The state is the light bar. You could see that across every area that we tested in ELA, the district is exceeding that of the state performance. And then just to share all of the numbers, again, you can access this online. It shows each grade level and each of the performance levels.
It looks like a lot of numbers, but why do we like to show this? Like, there's certain things that stand out. Like, if you go to exceeded expectations column and go to grade 7, 45.5 exceeded expectations. That means almost 50% of the kids were exceeding expectations. Like, that's phenomenal. That's
Compared
right.
to only 25 at the state.
Correct.
Okay, so here's our distribution by achievement levels. So each grade level shows the percentage of students who were performing from below all the way up to exceeding expectations. Just a nice visual.
If the green is what we like, the dark green and that light green, and then the yellow is like our cusp students. Like, that's where we can make the most gains. When we see something like 19% right there, if we can get even half of those, you know, and move them to the green, that is significant. The less students there are in that yellow, the harder it is to move kids. Because when they're 2 levels below, it becomes very, very difficult.
Okay, now the next few slides are going to show cohort proficiency. So here we're looking at the same students in their 3 different grade levels for the past 3 years, beginning with 3rd graders in 2023 and how they performed over time. Then it followed the 4th grade class in 2023. Again, increasing in terms of achievement across the 3 years, which is also really nice to see. And here we're looking at grade level comparison. So this differs. This is the same grade but different students. So we're just looking at the grade level assessment, how 3rd graders performed, different groups of 3rd graders performed across 3 years.
It's always interesting. 3rd grade is always interesting because that's their first time taking a state test, a big state test. So they come in, they don't, their typing skills are brutal, right? And they do the best they can. So that kind of sets the benchmark for where they start, and then we follow them as they move forward to see if they're growing.
If you were to take this information and compare it to the information in the table up above, when we're looking at 60.5% of students meeting proficiency in grade 3 compared to low 40 for the state there. So it's still exceeding the state averages. Okay, and now we have our subgroups. So here we're going to look at our race subgroup. And this is the same subgroups over 3 years.
What the county looks for, and Lauren can attest, Ms. O'Donnell can attest to this, when we go into county meetings, they want these subgroups as close to each other as possible. They do not want discrepancies between them. So they do not want to see, you know, white at 73% and then black at 22%. Our subgroups are actually pretty close to the main group, which is a good thing.
And here is gender. We're looking at females versus males.
Look at that.
And again, if you compare this to last year's presentation, which is also posted on the website, it's very much in line, which we found interesting in terms of the performance. And this is females versus males across 3 years. Okay, and now one of the other subgroups that we look at is program. This includes our multilingual learners, formerly known as ELLs, or English language learners, our free and reduced population, students with 504, special education, and then general education.
Clearly we worry about our special education population and our ML population. The ML population is growing, right, Ms. Odassa? And It's a really unfair comparison, because sometimes they come in and they know zero English. And math is the universal language, they have to take the math, which you'll see later on, even though math is heavy in English anyway. But our special ed population, if we just do those numbers quickly, Lauren and I were talking about this. If 300 special ed students took the test and only, 20% passed, that's not a good ratio. That's not a good ratio. Whereas you see our gen ed, we're well over 80%, with meeting and exceeding expectations. So we have to continuously look at the special ed population.
It's also important to note that with those specific and different populations, there are also different assessments that they take that give us better indicators of their proficiency and how effective their programming may be, especially with special education and multilingual learners. If you recall, I think in August we shared the access scores, which showed the ML performance. It's just a little bit more tailored to their needs and accurate. This is those subgroups over 3 years. And now we're going to look at our math performance. Here's our participation rate for math. Just another reminder that students in 8th grade have an option of either taking the grade 8 math assessment, or those students who are taking Algebra 1 will sit for the Algebra 1 assessment. Here on the participation rate is combined, just showing the number of 8th graders who took the assessment, but when we look at our achievement, it will be broken up. 3-year proficiency trend for mathematics, again, hovering pretty steady. Here's New Milford versus the state. Typically, our strongest learners are sitting for Algebra 1 in the middle school. We're also happy to share that last year we have more students. We've been able to, I know that's something that we've worked on. We've been able to increase the number of students in 8th grade taking Algebra 1 so that by the time they come up to the high school, they're ready to go right into geometry.
Yeah, I'm glad Ms. O'Donnell brought up that point, because last year, if you remember, in that grade 8, not the Algebra 1, just the grade 8 math, there was like 40-something% kids that were proficient as compared to 19 or 20% of the kids. And that means that we have a lot of kids meeting and exceeding expectations. And a lot of people think Algebra 1 is like the pathway to higher mathematics. The sooner we can get them into Algebra 1, the better. So even the county, when we were discussing with them, they brought up, hey, like this is a lot of kids that you're doing very well. Maybe you should open up another section. So this is kind of like how we interpret this data and use this data to kind of do pathways for the children.
And here's all of the performance by grade level and performance level. So typically you want to see higher percentages in levels 4 and 5. Those are the students who demonstrate proficiency, lower numbers in 1 through 3. And here is a visual for you.
I just have a question. So like, just grade 8, it's like 15% not meeting. Are you guys, I mean, that's kind of a little bit concerning there. Yeah. Especially as it's grade 8.
If you go back to that, please.
It's doubled at the state.
Yeah, if you go back to that.
Which one?
So the one with the 15%. So you have to remember too, the more kids that are in Algebra 1, the less kids are taking grade 8. So
Okay.
you're taking up, so
That makes sense.
that increases the percentage as well. If you added those kids in there, none of them, 0, would have been in that pink, but you're also adding more students, so it would decrease the percentage. We still don't like it.
Right.
But it's just an explanation, because it does
That makes
stick out
sense.
as a sore thumb. It's good eyes on your part.
And for math, we're looking at the same cohort of students across 3 years and what those trends look like in terms of proficiency, beginning with 3rd grade. And then students who were in 6th grade in 2023 couldn't either went into grade 8 or Algebra 1 for that 2025 administration. Okay, this is the same grade but different students, so different groups of kids taking the same grade level test.
Can I ask a question?
Mhm.
Or is that at the end?
No, you guys, you guys.
Grade, the transition from grade 5 to grade 6, and knowing that our elementary's ending at grade 5 and then we move over to DEO, is there any difference in the amount of instructional time from a 5th grader to a 6th grader? Because the numbers in each year are dropping in grade 6 from grade 5. So my question is, because I have a similar issue, my question is the amount of instructional time in mathematics the same in grade 5 as it is in grade 6, or is one more or one less?
So I know in grade 6, they do 60 minutes. They have that crazy bell schedule that allows them to do 90 minutes in ELA, 60 minutes, and then 40 minutes in science, 40 minutes, so 60 minutes. And I would say in the elementary schools, are we talking formal math time or informal math time? Because a lot of
math time is down your goldfish.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's pretty similar. I think the elementary might be a little bit more, because they'll do blocks at times.
Yeah, we've tried to do 60 minutes for the elementary schools with the math workshop, and there's also the morning meeting components that can be added in. Historically, if you look back at our performance data, there's been consistently a dip from 5th grade to 6th grade. This year, 5th grade performed, or spring 2025, 5th grade performed really well. It's noted at the end when we talk about like our notable achievements. So we do want to take a close look at what was happening so that we can like replicate those strategies, right, and build upon them. But that dip has led us to look at program, instruction. We've also departmentalized in 5th grade because of that many years ago. So it's not something that's new to us, but it's something that we're continuing to see and notice.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Here's our race subgroups for math. And 3-year proficiency trends. Pretty consistent. Gender. And gender across 3 years.
So it's interesting, females in language arts outperform the males, and then in the math, the stereotype, I don't know, it's kind of even, but I'll say the stereotype kind of holds true.
And then by program. So again, our ML's free and reduced, 504 special ed and gen ed. And then program across 3 years. Okay, now we also tested in the spring science. We've been talking about different ways to improve their performance in the area of science, and we did administer the science assessment first for the spring, which we're trying to build on some successes that we saw in other districts and from prior years. The performance levels there's only 4 of them as compared to ELA and math, and levels 3 and 4 demonstrate proficiency. Here's our participation rate. Grades 5, 6, and 11. Oh, that should be 8. That's a typo, I'm sorry. It's 5, 8, and 11. I looked at this so many times too. Sorry. And here's district performance across 3 years. Again, this is combined, all of our students in science. So we're slowly making gains. And then by grade level,
So something we look at, like that side is interesting, because Ms. O'Donnell and I talk disparity, right? So when you look at the language arts scores and the math scores, we're always trying to get that disparity between the state and then us. And typically we like to be around 15 to 18% above the state based on our old DFG. That's kind of what we expect. Anything over that is gravy. We don't want to be under that. But it's interesting, in science, there's less disparity. So that's a question that we have been asking ourselves. We went to a workshop over the summer, the 2 principals, myself, to see like what other districts are doing. Typically, it was River Edge was one, Dwight Morrow was one, that are doing really well on these science tests, just to share information about, here's what we do, this might be a blueprint for you all. Now, demographics are very different. But they shared some great insights, and we're taking that back and shared it with, the principals were there. We touched base with it, you'll see some of that in our strategies.
again, this is New Milford versus the state that you're looking at. And then by level. And distribution by achievement level.
There's your pink.
Yeah. 3-year comparison by grade level, same grade, different students who sat for the assessment. We didn't look at cohort trends for science because by the time that they take these assessments, the assessment has changed. We went from NJ Ask to NJSLA, so it would not be an accurate comparison. And our subgroups, race, three-year trend, gender, three-year trend. And program. So some of the highlights, and this is where we really bring it down. There's a lot of information before you, and you can certainly go back and check out the numbers. But some of the things to highlight in our 6th graders in English Language Arts, we saw a 5.9% increase in the number of students who are meeting and exceeding expectations, outperforming state achievement by 3%. In grade 7, 5.8% gain in the number of students meeting and exceeding, surpassing the state by 2.7%. In math, earlier we mentioned grade 5 math, there was a 9.6% improvement in students demonstrating proficiency, also exceeding the state average. And in grade 7 math, we had a 7.2% rise in the number of students meeting and exceeding, better than the state performance by 5.9%. The Black subgroup population of students, so an 8% gain in ELA proficiency. Our economically disadvantaged students saw a 9% increase in math proficiency. 8th grade science had the most gains with 6.6% increase in proficiency, and we saw an increase of 2% in ELA for our male students.
Other,
Do you
like,
wanna-
little things like with notable achievement, these aren't really notable achievements, but it's interesting tidbits. This is like when I go to bed at night and I wake up and I'm like, I wonder, and I wake up and I research it. So in the elementary school, there were 11 perfect scores. In terms of 850 is a perfect score, there were 11 of them. In the middle school, I think there were 10. Even more interesting, there were 2 students in 8th grade that scored 850 perfect in language arts and math. And that is like a unicorn. I haven't really seen that before in all my years, maybe a handful of times. There was 2 students, I know their names, and I will be asking about the principals about them, but they scored perfect on both math and language arts, which usually is 2 different parts of the brain, so to get both is pretty amazing. They're both in, you know what? I didn't look at that. I don't know. I will find out and I'll let you know.
So based on this data, we want to pay attention to our upper level math support, so focus on grade 8 math. As I said earlier, we were able to increase the number of students who are sitting for Algebra 1 in 8th grade, but how can we support students in grade 8 math and prepare them so that they are meeting proficiency when they come up and sit for Algebra 1 in high school. Looking at Algebra 1 in geometry, we did see proficiency rates drop there a bit compared to the previous year. We're continuing to look at elementary, middle school, and grade 9 ELA, targeting 3 through 5, and grade 9, which experienced slight declines in meeting and exceeding expectations. We really want to build on the improvements that we saw in grade 6 and 7 ELA, where the students who were meeting proficiency increased, and address, the slight change in our 8th grade population. We're always looking to close the achievement gap for all of our subgroup populations. So we're looking at, prioritizing interventions for our race subgroups, making sure that the interventions that we provide are inclusive. They did have, or were showing lower overall proficiency in ELA and math compared to the Asian and white subgroups, so that's something that we noted and want to take a closer look at. Upper level science, grade 11 science continues to be an area that we're looking closely at. And then implementation of grade 5 math strategies. Before I mentioned replicating some of those strategies that were successful. So what exactly is happening? What were we doing that could have lent itself to those increases? And then how can we build upon and expand upon those strategies to boost performance in other grade levels? So some of the things based on, not only, it's important to note that yes, the NJSLA data is one, it's a very big piece of data for us, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. So this alongside our classroom assessments, our input from teachers, and local benchmarking data, we have thought about and planned for the interventions that we'll be implementing this year. So recently, the elementary standard-based report cards were revised to align with the updated NJSLS in ELA and math. Teachers will be working collaboratively to identify and develop assessments aligned with those standards so that we're consistent across grade levels and really from classroom to classroom. We're going to expand our use of the practice tests that are available to us, as well as the digital item library. I think this came from the workshop that was hosted over the summer. Some districts have found great success in utilizing those tools in the classroom and embedding that into the regular classroom instruction. And then next month, Mr. Mandipelli will be joining us to talk more about the high school semester assessments. also known as what we traditionally refer to as midterms and finals, so that we can implement those in our core content areas to assess student understanding. In English ELA specifically, we're bringing back our K-5 tutoring program. It's rebranded, so it's folded there because it is new, but really focus small groups to hone in on specific deficiencies in reading and writing. We will again host an elementary literacy family night. If anybody has any ideas on how we can boost participation in that, we're definitely open. But we have a team of teachers ready to provide workshops for parents so that we can help you support your kids at home. We're continuing our PD for elementary and ELA teachers. This year we're actually continuing work with 2 consultants in the elementary school, and they're going to bridge together in 3rd grade. So 3rd grade is actually going to be working with both consultants. This aligns with the new literacy mandates for students in K-3. And some of those early literacy skills that we're still targeting in 3rd grade. So how can we, still equip and build upon students' early literacy skills in 3rd grade, but also align ourselves with grade 4 and the rigor of the NJSLS so that we're preparing them for what lies ahead. And utilizing our Title I funds, we're offering a targeted support program for 11th graders. It is like intensive extra help for our juniors to help prepare them for the NJ GPA.
Yeah, we're really excited at the high school. Laura and I, we worked together and figured out how to get them access to title funds, which is huge. So they get approximately like $70,000 to $80,000 in title funds, and now we can help pay our teachers extra support for the kids, get resources they need and everything else for a targeted population. It's different because it's a targeted population. It's not school-wide like Berkeley and school-wide like DVL. There's a lot more work to it, but we may try to transition to a school-wide plan next year because we do have free and reduced numbers over 20%, which kind of lets us do that. It makes it much easier.
This is actually a good time to mention it. So because we're operating a targeted assistance program in high school and providing these supports to students, there are specific rules that we have to follow in terms of how we identify students for those supports. We're basing it on multiple measures. We're using, standardized data, and we're notifying parents. There's a whole slew of requirements. So you will see on a future agenda recommendations for coordinators who will be helping support that fluid population of students who are going to be serviced throughout the school year, because there's a lot of red tape that goes along with that. In math, we're also going to be offering a targeted tutoring program, providing small group interventions, really focusing on those foundational math skills, elementary math family night. This we've done, it was very successful. It's interactive. It gives parents a glimpse of what's happening in the classroom and how the kids are engaging with math and learning math. We're exploring chess for elementary students. Mr. Blasso, you want to?
Yeah, I brought it to my school, and it's nice because when you introduce it, we'll start in 5th grade and maybe go to 4th grade the following year. Any downtime, these kids start pulling out chessboards and competing against each other. It's not just, it's very similar to like math. Chess equates very well to math, but it's also about stamina. It's also about like thinking outside the box. It's also about learning how to lose. Like there's so many things to it, and I worry that chess is gonna die. With these kids and all their video games and everything else, who wants to pull out a chessboard and play? But it's great, like before winter break on a half day, when the teachers are winding down, the kids are done. Instead of going on like your Chromebook, or instead, go play chess. And now you can do chess tournaments eventually once they know it. I mean, in my old school, we had banners about who was the chess champion in each one, and you get kids really excited about it. And the middle school has a chess club, so it helps promote that. I don't know, it's just interesting, it tricks kids into like perseverance and math and all that, and it's fun. Once they know, they're gonna look at it immediately and say it's boring, but then it gets pretty intense.
We're also targeting our 11th graders for targeted math support in high school, harnessing our Title I funding. We're not new, but I don't think last year we did use Conquer Math, but we're returning to Conquer Math for that content area expertise. We, no longer have the supervisor of math, so just to make sure that our teachers are really building their foundational understanding of the NJSLS and what those expectations look like for kids. And then peer-to-peer math coaching, utilizing our PLCs in our Monday afternoons for teachers to look at best practices, think about things that they did in their classrooms that were really successful, and encourage them sharing their ideas with one another. In science, we're continuing with Science Explorers, hands-on inquiry-based programming. Science Explorers actually comes in and works alongside our students and teachers. We did this last year utilizing Title I funding at Berkeley. Mr. Dalala was very interested in expanding this to our middle school learners, so we're happy to say that we are bringing that up there for this school year.
In Berkeley, that Science Explorers, I was visiting one day, and I was like, what the heck is that smell? And it was formaldehyde, they were dissecting sharks in the media center. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was like, we're dissecting sharks, are we? So, and these kids dove right in and did it, and there were no tears. I was very impressed.
They make it's fun. It's like, all those experiments.
I never dissected a shark. I was like, it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
Formaldehyde and sharks.
Yeah, right in the media, right in the media center, and it was pretty amazing.
Ongoing professional development. We're looking at science family engagement events, so like hands-on events where we can invite kids in with parents to do almost mirror what we've done in math. In the elementary schools, we're launching science curriculum teams, so it's a dedicated team of teachers who are going to review the curriculum, make sure that the units of study and all of our lessons are aligned with the standards, build upon lessons, share them out with their colleagues. This is also something that we're funding through Title I. We're looking at bringing in more interactive presentations for kids on science topics in the middle school to really deepen their content understanding, and getting literature, science literature in our kids' hands just to expand their understanding, make it a little bit more fun and engaging. The more that we can cross disciplines, I think the better. This also supports ELA as well, their reading comprehension, vocabulary, and et cetera. So there's quite a lot that we're doing. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Anyone have any questions?
I did.
Okay.
First, is there a copy of this where, or at least you just provided, like numbers of the actual number of students in each grade? Just because I know we're in percentages right now, I like to see the actual, be able to extrapolate the number of kids that are meeting expectations as opposed to percentage.
The subgroups, you won't get all the numbers for the subgroups because anything
Yeah,
less
that's
than 10,
fine. I just need
we can't share.
just even the number of students enrolled in that grade. And then the other thing is I actually went back to your presentation in 2023, and I've sat through these enough, I think, right? I noticed a notable change in the intervention strategies, with a little bit less focus on PD, right? I'll just notice that because it was something that I questioned a lot in the very beginning. Is not saying that you're not also doing PD, but then there's also more hands-on things that you're doing with the students, which is amazing. And the families, because I think that's a huge, they play a huge role in their learning, right? Is that because you've made a shift in, you know, the strategy, or does any of that have to do with some of the kind of loss in funding that we have and are not able to do as much PD?
I'd say it's a little bit of both. You know, you can speak to 2023 more, you know. I know, listen, the loss in funding definitely impacts our professional development. I'm not gonna lie about that. We try to maximize and make it as best as we can and hit the areas where we think we most need. Professional development is always good to have, but at some point, the capacity of your teachers have to be built as well. So if you do 10 years of professional development in a certain way, you know, that capacity of those teachers should be able to turnkey at some point. So it becomes like, I don't know, not useless, but it becomes like redundant. Exactly. So it's a matter of, you know, seeing what works. We're looking at different consultants, kind of, like at the high school, we're bringing in, she used to work for Concord Math, but she's going to focus on midterms and assessments with the high school, because we feel like in the development of midterms and finals, like an expert's eye should be on, you know. So it's quantity of PD has certainly went down, but hopefully there's more targeted PD, so it's just as effective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree, I think it's, you know, it's quality over quantity, but I was kind of curious if it was like a deliberate shift, or if there's a different money factor.
I think we were kind of forced into it.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's creative problem solving and looking at different things, and there's a lot that we can learn from each other. But just for context, we're operating at 50% reduction of what we had in funding just from last year. So when you look at what we're getting, you know, in Title II, which supports all of our PD right now, that has to be stretched. Pre-K-12, all of our different programs, all of our different populations, every content area. So it doesn't really go that far.
Yeah.
So we're trying to maximize it, as Mr. Galasso said, and also, you know, build the capacity of our teachers to keep that continued learning going.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important point for the public, you know, just hear these test scores, to know that there are some, you know, things that we're battling as the chair of the Finance and Negotiations Committee. I appreciate the understanding of how kind of, you know, unfortunately, money plays a factor in some of the things that we can do.
No, it has to be pointed out too. It's a little different than what you were talking about, Ms. Calderon, but the test is changing next year. So it's now, it's now an adaptive test. So we're very curious to see what that is like. And we did the fall assessment, but the fall assessment was not adaptive.
We didn't do it yet, we were about to do it, it's coming up, and even though it's the NJSLA adaptive field test, it's not adaptive for the field test.
So,
Right, and I mean, I can imagine
It's just
that
a
measuring trends for a test that continues to change
it's hard.
is not, yeah, it's not ideal, it's
It's hard.
suboptimal.
And in particular, science drives, I love data, but science drives me particularly crazy because they do give us swaths of data for the NJSLA math and ELA, where to the point where I can say, you know, in grade 6, we're looking at grade 6 scores, and I was like, you know what? There was a big drop off, and I was like, I just love going to the writing portion of the NJSLA writing scores, and there were 11 kids that just got zeros flat across the board, which means they didn't even type a word. I've seen points as low as 5 points, and this is out of 100. So I've seen 5, I've seen 10. 0 means you looked at the question and then next and submitted. That's what that means, and that was 11
Or
kids.
do they not have enough time, like dating for enough time to finish it? Can it be that? I don't know, I don't know what the test looks like, so they just chose not to do it.
I don't know, I would think they chose not to do it, because even the kids that like, usually they write something and try to brush and write something, to get 0 points, it means they did nothing, which goes to like a kid's mentality. Like after they do the science test, after they do the math test, and now language arts, and they're on the 7th day of testing, and it's like, all right, what are we doing here? You know? So there's so many components to it. But back to the NJSLA science, they don't have any of that. I can't tell who gets a perfect score. I don't have any evidence plots to look at like how many numbers kids got right a certain question. We got nothing.
Yeah,
So it's just like, here's the raw score,
yeah.
and then fix it. And it's like, oh man. it doesn't give us a lot of data. So,
And the messaging for standardized testing is hard, right? Because you don't want to put too much pressure on them. Because you tell them like, this is just a snapshot in time for that day, you could be having a bad day. And then you're also like, it's a big decision maker, right, for our purposes. So it's hard, you want kids to take it seriously, but not too seriously that they have like a breakdown, so it's.
yeah.
And this is just one piece.
Yeah.
So if you think about the amount of testing and how that's increased, like kids this year are sitting for the field test, the NJSLA in the spring, 3 benchmark assessments, and any other assessments that are aligned with their courses throughout the school year. So the instructional time that's lost is unfortunately growing and increasing,
And it's all mandatory.
and it's all
So-
mandatory, yeah.
Back in my day, we used to scan
We have
this
to-
thing, just put a C for every answer. We
And,
did just fine.
and every district is dealing with this, it's not just us.
It's not unique to,
Always C.
but this will be, I'll correct that grade 6 for science and post this up tomorrow on the website.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Anyone else have any other questions?
I just want to say, once again, Ms. Odowska, fantastic presentation. Anybody that goes on our website and sees it, it's awesome. Thank you.
I keep mine, that's why I
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, superintendent school support, Nicolasa?
Sure, so work session, good evening. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Great job in the interview, and I'm looking forward to having you. So, board action. I'm going to ask you to recommend for approval a number of items. I'll talk about some of them specifically. First, the approval of September 2025 HIV report. In New Milford High School, there were 0 HIV 338 forms submitted. DEO, there was 1 HIV 338 form submitted, which was investigated by the ABS and was founded, meeting the criteria for HIV. In Berkeley, there was also 1 HIV 338 form submitted. It was investigated and also founded. And then in Gibbs, there was 1 HIV 338 form submitted, and this one was investigated and unfounded. So 2 out of 3 were founded. If it meets the evidence, we do find them, as part of HIV. Approve the September suspension report. In New Milford High School, there was 1 student served 1 day of in-school suspension, DEO. 3 students served 1 day each of in-school suspension. Berkeley, 1 student served 1 day of in-school suspension. In Gibbs, no students were suspended. We also have the approval of the self-assessment for determining grades under the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. And what this is, every year, the Student Safety and Climate Team, which kind of leads anti-bullying efforts, meets, and they go over this rubric from the state, and they kind of self-assess themselves based on evidence, and they score themselves on this rubric, and then we have to submit it to the state. 78 out of 78 is a 100%. BF Gibbs scored 75, Berkeley Street School scored 75, NMHS scored 75, and DEO scored 76 points. That was curious to me, 75, 75, 75, 76. DEO has the most HIV, so they do the most interventions, and it gives them more points on that rubric. Listen, I'm not going to say it's impossible to get 78 points. I would love to talk to a school that does get 78 points in the county, because there's one portion of it that says, do you train your substitutes on HIV? It's impossible. Sometimes I don't know the substitute that I'm getting until 8 minutes before the bell rings sometimes. So, no, are they trained? No, they're not trained. So we don't give ourselves points in that category, So that's why, the points are a little lower than 78. The nursing services plan, there was a new form. The nurses worked very hard on this. I believe it was attached on the attachments with the regular agenda. This does not have to be submitted to the county anymore. We keep it on file. The big push now is to include non-publics, and they are very strict. We went through CUSAC last year. We got all our points for the nursing services plan, but they were big on the non-publics and communicating with them. And we have 3 non-publics. We're blessed with 3 non-publics within our borders, and so we have to work with them, help fund them. We have to know their needs and help them out as well. I don't think a lot of the parents know that the non-publics, even though they're non-public, we still do a tremendous amount of work. Luckily, I do not have to. Ms. Odowska handles it, and the child study team, but tremendous amount of meetings and resources and time You'll also see on here later on, there's grants where our teachers go teach them after school, and we have to get reimbursed for that, so a lot.
We oversee all of their federal spending.
And they never take Title I because there's so many strings attached to it, but they take Title II, Title III, and Title IV, correct? What else do I want to focus on? Okay, the revised school calendar. So I hate doing a revision, however, I had to see with my own eyes, and I kind of explained that June election drives me crazy because it wasn't around for so long, and now it is, and I wanted to see for my own eyes the June election before I put it on as a day. So I did a huge audit of it. I walked to schools, I talked to the police officers, I then met with the mayor, the chief of police during a meeting, and we talked about everything. Gibbs, we could technically hold school while the voting is in session. Berkeley, we could do it if we added security doors kind of outside by the gym before they enter the hallway. DEO, there's no shot right now. So the only way we could do it is if the borough moves the election from DEO to an alternate location, and that's very, very difficult, and that's not happening overnight. So now we're moving forward with a decision, like, yes, we are gonna give the students off because of security reasons, and now that, even further than that, the whole thing's crazy. Police officers are not allowed to be within 100 feet of the election booth. So we can't even like station a police officer right outside to prevent people from coming in the building. They have to be 100 feet away because they're worried that the police officers will intimidate the voters into voting a certain way. So there's a lot against us in holding school. Safety is the #1 priority. So we have 4 emergency days. We're just going to allow the April one off, put it for the June one, and then that's it. Okay? We haven't used 4 emergency days in a long time. Hopefully this doesn't bite us in the rear end. But we're also on schedule, you know, for getting out in the teens this year if we use our emergency days wisely.
Do you think though, like going forward for future elections, we should work with the town sooner than later to just move them out of our schools completely?
We will never be able to move them all out of our schools just based on the number of locations they need. My #1 thing is get it out of DEO and then, you know, maybe add a door in there into Berkeley possibly. But the moving of the elections, from what I understand, and I did research it, is very, very difficult. You need certain booths within certain proximity of walking places within the town itself. And listen, we have, of all mayors in the county, I think our mayor is probably one of the most involved and accommodating and invested. And you can see he was just like, this is a much bigger discussion.
What about our non-public schools? Work together since we help them out and we do a lot of work for them, maybe they could take it on. Just saying.
I don't think the non-public, so the borough can make us do it. I don't think they can make the
Right.
non-publics do it. But,
Use your fancy shed.
Yeah.
Just use the shed.
you know what?
Oh, the oldest, what about the YMCA, the oldest
Use the
Sense
pole
in
barn.
church?
Use the
Why
pole
can't it be
barn.
there
Use the pole barn.
as a
The pole
location?
barn.
See, that could be one of the locations,
Yeah,
but there has to be others as well within a
They have to
proximity.
be
You're gonna
within
be
proximity of
forward.
like certain places, like they can't be centered into one area, like,
I know.
that's why like St. Joseph's close, but they're further away.
Yep.
And so you have to have it like these kind of central areas in town.
But I will,
Sense in church.
the discussion's definitely not over, you know, I will bring it up again. But I want to see for myself and, you know, be informed, and that's why I kind of did it this way. I just didn't want to put a day on the calendar, not knowing why or if it was possible. Because I'm a huge believer in attendance at school, and a lot of my newsletters are going to be focused on attendance and everything else, which I explained in the last newsletter, and the more consistency we can have, especially in June. I do not want to go late in June. I'm a huge proponent of getting out in June as early as possible, because after June 10th, it gets really rough in schools. You know, everybody's kind of done, and I'm just being honest. So, but it is not in our stars yet to get the elections out of there, so we'll do the best we can moving forward. Personnel recommendations, our Play Unified staff, we are going to do this again, which is one of the amazing programs. I know the board wanted to get involved and see a few things. If you want to see something that's really, really neat, I would encourage you to come to one of the Play Unified games when we have our most needy population with, you know, typical students, and they literally work together to play basketball against another town of the, you know, a program of similar makeup. really amazing. I'm gonna invite my old district down to see it, because we do not do anything like that. I was like, this is something you gotta bring to your school. It's really amazing, and we are looking to expand it, to not just include basketball, but other sports as well. Mr. Riccadelli went to Pascack Hills, to look at their program, because a lot of schools that we talk to aren't big enough to fund that program, and so now we're going to the big north, which is Hills Valley, the bigger schools, because for such a small district, we have a pretty big special ed population. So we're more similar in that regard to these bigger schools, so we're looking into that. The only bad news is the grant was decreased by the agency or state, I'm not really sure. We used to get $4,500, now we're only getting $2,500, but we figured out a way to supplement that income, just because culturally to the school and to the kids, it's a wonderful program. I would encourage you to go out and take a look. Once we get the dates, I will get it to you. So it's during the school day, it's not after school, so you wouldn't have to take off work. I think that's going to be it for me until closed session. There was a first reading of the policy on there, which Mr. Alvaro, I thank you for sending out the minutes. That is it for me.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? Assistant Superintendent Report, Lauren Doxta.
I'm gonna save my report for next meeting.
Perfect. Business Administrator Reports to Stephanie Kuchar.
I'm gonna have a more comprehensive report at the next meeting. However, for tonight, I sent you all earlier pictures of the student lounge at the high school, and so far the windows have been done on the wall that's facing Cucino on the uppers, and then when you're in the back of the school, it's like a professional learning lab that's down there now. Before you get to the cafeteria, those windows have been completed, and they're completing the senior lounge today, and it's a huge difference. Like, the kids can see out. It's,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, it looks completely different.
Kids were just staring at it. Because
Reaching out and touching it.
they couldn't see out the windows, for security reasons, they just paneled up, and I understand security. And so right now it's clear glass. We're going to get the film on the outside, so it's reflective, so you can't see in, but you can see out. But it opened up the space. It looks modern. It's wonderful. And the kids were really excited, and the teachers were really excited. Everybody's really excited. Really
Yeah, so they haven't done the cafeteria, but that should be cool, because that's a much bigger area. So we have that coming up, and then the first week of November, right now it's scheduled for a teacher convention. We're gonna see if we can do it Tuesday and Wednesday instead. They're doing the ceiling in the senior lounge, so that'll be, I don't even know what the ceiling material is, to be honest, down
Yeah,
there.
we were
It's
debating that. I was up on a chair touching it, like, is it metal? Is it hard cardboard? What the heck is
It's
it?
most certainly like a metal, but the problem with it is that all of our wiring is not, it's just on the ceiling. And so we have to clean all of that up, and pull those wires and everything that's above it. There's even like dead wires, like stuff that's not even being utilized, so we have to figure out what all of that is. And the plan is to hopefully continue the grid and at least do a drop ceiling for the hallway downstairs, and we're just trying to make small improvements on a really big list of facility projects.
And one reason why we did the cafeteria is pretty much every student accesses that area, and sits in that area, and a lot of our big functions are in that area. So it hits the broadest populace. Obviously, the locker room is always on our minds. I will not, skirt that at all. Like, even looking out these windows, my joy is always just ripped away from me. So I go up there and I'm like, these are amazing. I'm like, how do you like it? And the kids are like, this is amazing. I can see out the window. They're all smiles, and they're like, when are you going to do the locker room? It's always on their minds, but like, that's a huge project. Dr. Kuchar and I are always looking at that. I don't want you to think that that's not on our mind. It is, but we are taking these little wins. And I would encourage you, the next time you're in the building, is go and pretend like you're a senior in high school and look out that window. It's really, really nice.
But I say that because we have, you know, these small little victories, and then we get slapped in the face because today's October 15th, which means it's the first day of heating season in schools, and we are unable to fire up the high school boilers. And so the total cost on that project is $43,385 that we have to somehow come up with, because I don't know what the technical term is, but it's like a hot water heater essentially, because we run on steam heat, and so it was the floats, the pumps, everything sort of that had to do it. We were trying to see if we could figure out a way to use the old pumps, and we can. It's really kind of putting a Band-Aid on, and then when they finally got the equipment in, actually, the equipment was purchased before I came to the district, and they could not figure out a way to get the equipment into the building. And so last week, they had a rig that they took the old one out and finally was able, so we didn't actually have to purchase it because we've had it, we just couldn't do anything with it.
We're just storing it.
So the 43,000 is
Saving
just to
for a
fix
rainy
it?
day.
Yeah, and so finally, and we were able to find the company that was able to get it in. So that's a small win.
When did you get
because
here?
2020, so it's been five years.
So it's already 5 years old.
It's already 5 years, but never been used,
But-
brand new, brand new. So we didn't actually have to purchase it. So that's a huge win. But we did have to get it in, and so the total cost of that is $43,000.
So was it the new thing that couldn't fire, or the old system that couldn't fire?
The old system.
How do we know the new system's gonna fire? It's 5 years
Because,
old.
yeah, well,
Okay.
yeah, once they get everything, yeah, they were here until 10
Did the system
o'clock.
have problems at the end of the year, or it was just like, it was fine and turned it off?
No, it was-
Turned it back on?
There was.
No, it was issues.
Oh.
We always have issues with the boilers, at the high school, but there's steam there, so really, we did upgrade all the rest, so all the other schools are on high efficiency boilers, and we haven't had any issues since they've been replaced, but the high school is
And
awful.
a lot of times with old equipment, you know, once you get it started, you can keep it going, kind of. But when it doesn't, it's like an old car, right? Like, as long as you can start it, you can get it to where it needs to go most of the time. That might be a lot of hiccups with it, but when you can't start it.
Yeah, we also have no controls, so,
Turning it on and off, yeah?
yeah. But we also have no controls on them, so it just runs. It's either on or it's off. So we make the best with what we have, but not at this meeting because it's all happening too quickly right now. In November, there will be a resolution to pull the money out of maintenance reserve so that it's not hitting our local budget, because right now, we're sort of making it happen, but we can't take 43,000, I just don't know where we're pulling the money from, so that will be a recommendation for approval at the November meeting. Today is also October 15th. The snapshot for the student data was pushed back, so the snapshot isn't happening today for the student data, but that's how our funding is calculated for the 26-27 budget, because it pulls from, it's a new system called NJ Sleds, and so the ASSA is pulled from that, and the ASSA is typically due the first week of December. I'm sure it's probably still going to be the first week of December, because they push one thing back doesn't mean they push another one, and then that's how we get our funding. So it's really important that we make sure that that data is correct. We do believe that we have everything in there, and we've been working to complete that. And then in terms of it's just important to submit all of our free and reduced lunch applications, because that counts into our funding as well. And then parents will not receive the notices from my office that they have high balances if they do qualify for free and reduced lunch. And that concludes my report.
A long time ago, last year, like when Mr. Watson was here, we discussed in facilities, Gibbs donated a playground. So that has been being built, and will be finalized in the next couple of days, actually. It's been a long time coming. I think they've been raising money for like years before I was here, so it's come to fruition now, and it'll be done soon.
I don't know if it's related, but I know you guys focused a little bit on the residency forms for this year. Was there any outcome on that? Was there a handful of people that shouldn't have been here
That we were getting,
that kicked out, or
I don't know about kicked out, but we definitely
cleared up some residents?
Yeah, there were some. It sort of opened up a bigger can of worms that we've been dealing with. We have a large population of residents in the apartments, and so it's a one-year lease. We also have a lot of families that utilize like a C1 affidavit, and so that's like a 1 year. And so what we're running into is now, I asked all of the secretaries to input the data into our student information system, and so we run a report of any time that any of this is coming up. And so that's what we're finding is a lot of those families, which tends to be a more transient like population anyway, are not actually residing there.
Right.
So it's created a,
So when they initially come to the school, they're living at the apartments, but after a
Correct.
year, they might have moved somewhere else.
Well, they sign a year lease, or a lot of times what you're telling me is happening is somebody will just like rent the apartment for them, right? And then they're living there, but their uncle is renting it for them, and then it's hard for them to get paperwork, and we don't know when they leave or come.
yeah, that's what we're, and it's a lot of families that are moving in from other countries. And so that's now what we're finding is that a lot of families aren't able to produce any documents in their name. And so then it opens up the McKinney-Vento, which is the homeless. And so we're working through all of that. And so I think once we have this established and it's out in the community that we're now like on top of it, the hope is that it gets better. But, and a lot of times too is they'll go from apartment A to apartment B.
Right.
And so it's like, we just want to know that they're here and they're living, like wherever they are, we just want to be
Yeah,
communicating
okay.
with the right place.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I know it's the class sizes in seventh grade, right?
Huge.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if that was related either.
It's a big class.
Okay, anyone else have any questions for Stephanie? Okay, any liaison board committee reports? Okay.
So the curriculum meeting met a short time ago. The topic that I selected for that evening was just what we do in the way of preparing for college readiness at the senior level and for trade school readiness. The report from Lauren has been sent out to everybody, so you have that. My notes were sent out to everybody, so you have that. I just think that publicly, it's a good idea to mention that we do offer so many opportunities to our seniors, especially opportunities that save families a significant amount of money in the way of AP classes and dual enrollment. So I would encourage any families that are looking to further their education in the college area or even community college to take a look at that, because there is a substantial savings that's out there.
I think that was well addressed in the back to school night for the high school. I think that was a good presentation, and I think it hit home for a lot of people, that I don't think maybe people knew about it, but I thought it was a good presentation.
Yeah. And that concludes my report.
Tony?
Okay. The policy committee met last week. I want to thank all the committee members for being there. And Mr. Galasso, with all of us jumping in and out, you might have been repeated 4 or 5 times. We were able to do a couple of things. Number one, we were able to draft a schedule of meetings throughout the rest of the school year. We tentatively had them starting at 4:30, subject to change. We did 2 things, basically. We talked about looking at policy. Policies normally change if laws change, if certain, we go from core curriculum to NJS. Anything that changes, that usually results in a policy change. And there's a company that almost everybody uses to put those changes out. But then there are other policies that haven't changed in a very long time. And as a result, the board really hasn't looked at them in a long time. So we took a look at the board approval dates of all of our policies. And any policy that was 8, 9, 10 years dated, our goal is in our upcoming committee meetings to be able to sort of refresh that and put our eyes on it. And if anything has to change, that would be the time to do it. And at least we'll have our dates updated. And then we also looked at the company. Strauss Esme put out an alert of about 12 or 14 policies and regulations, which for our regular meeting will have first reading that night. And majority of them are just name changes within the documents. The newest ones, or where we had to make specific choices, they give you options and the district has to make a choice, is the new policy concerning student sun protection. And it basically results from a law. There's actually a law about it now. And the recommendation for the board to approve the policy with the following choices being made. 1, the district has the right to require written permission from the parent of a student prior to the student using sunscreen at school or a school-sponsored function. The district has the right to limit the types of sunscreen that are allowed to be carried into school or used at school-sponsored functions, for example, certain aerosols, scents, etc. And the district also is going to propose language to eliminate the district's liability for the transportation or transporting of student sunscreen on board approved field trips. That's really because it's new, that's the biggest change, and that's where the committee and the superintendent talk about what choice are we going to go with. And I don't really recall, what was the old policy? If you have it, use it.
The old sunscreen
It
policy?
was like a practice, right? It wasn't more policy, it was more practice.
Yeah, if you had it, you put it on yourself.
Now it's like an etiquette.
Now, well, that's what we're trying to avoid with not requiring the documentation, and the kids can put it, but the principal has discretion where, listen, if the aerosol ones, and it's stinking up the whole room, like the teacher and principal can say, no, we're not doing that, like, put it in the middle school's, hand, and now aerosols, they spray into their spaces, we don't want to be liable.
Is this a problem though in our schools?
No, it's not, but the state, I guess, wants to get ahead of,
Yeah, I think it takes the onus off of the staff to apply the sunscreen.
Yeah, I mean, I get that.
And to call home, hey, didn't you bring sunscreen today? I mean, I'm a perfect example. Listen, it's on the parent to, if that's a problem, send it to school, but you can't just use anything. Like all the children we have with respiratory problems, you can't just start spraying aerosol all over the place. So, I'm sure there's a reason for the law.
Yeah.
If you remember, we talked about a while back, service animals, we were talking about llamas and stuff like that. So there's a reason for it, I suppose. But now it's another policy on the books. I don't think it's going to change for a while. And it's not going to change for a while. It's just, I guess it has to be there. It's another thing to worry about. That concludes my report. Thank you.
I just have one question. So has Strauss Esme brought up like AI at all? Has there been anything where they're like mandating anything yet?
There's no mandate yet.
They said it's coming soon.
There's a recommendation out.
AI has to write it for.
I was just wondering, because I know it came up in like the county board meetings, and I just wonder if they put anything out yet. Okay.
By the time they give it, AI will change.
Right. Okay. Okay. Any correspondence?
None this evening.
Okay, agenda items for discussion. Review, any questions regarding board action? Any questions regarding educational programs and curriculum? Personnel recommendations? Finance and facilities? Athletics and co-curricular? Okay. You want to look over just in case you don't know? Okay, any old business? Any new business? All right, open to the public. I seek a motion as outlined in Milford Board of Education, bylaw 0167. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes. I need a second. Stephanie, all in favor? Opposed? Anyone from the public? Okay, I seek a motion to close to the public. Tony, seconded by Andrew, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any board member requests for additional information? Okay, I seek a motion to go into close. Tony, seconded by Cheryl. It is hereby moved that the Board of Education adjourn into executive session in accordance with the provisions of Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231 PL, for the purpose of discussion and consideration of matters pertaining to the following subject: personnel and student matter. The minutes of the executive session will be made available to the public when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Okay. Oh, we're not taking action when we adjourn. Come back and adjourn.
No action.